The London theatre scene from 1590 to 1610 is referred to as the Elizabethan era. This is because it was throughout the time of Queen Elizabeth's reign, until she died in 1603. William Shakespeare, Christopher Marlowe, and Ben Jonson were all well-known playwrights at the time. The theatre industry had an unpleasant reputation within the city of London. Authorities banned the plays within the city limits, so as a result, theatres began opening across the Thames River, where the authorities had no power.
Many theaters were either round, square, or octagonal shaped, and the structures usually consisted of an unroofed courtyard, roofed galleries, tiring houses, curtained discovery spaces, and a trapdoor. There were several well-known theaters that were created during the Elizabethan era. The first theater to be built was called the Theatre, and it was built by James Burbage in 1576. Another theater that existed during this time was the Swan, which was built in 1594. But the most well-known of these theaters was the Globe Theatre, which was originally built in 1594, but burned down in 1613. Later it was reopened in 1614. Life of an actor in 1590 through 1610. Usually the white lead-based paint that male actors would use in the plays would often give many of the actors lead poisoning. Also, actors would form groups called companies, which were sponsored by nobles to gain political protection during the time because they didn't make a lot of money. They would have to memorize as many as 50 lines for 25 different plays in a single month because plays were rarely repeated. Rehearsals were used to sort out the details that were not specified in the script. Entrance, exits, costumes, and songs were all expected to be filled in by the actors.
Elizabethan clothing of the upper class was beautiful. The materials were luxurious and were covered in a whole variety of colors. Since the sumptuary laws were in place, regular Elizabethans were not able to wear the latest fashion. Fashionable clothes would only be seen at a distance, when wealthy nobles or royalty were in view. Actors were awarded special acknowledgement to wear these wonderful clothes. Costumes in the Elizabethan theatre would therefore be seen as a fashion show. All people of the Elizabethan period understood the true meaning behind a different color clothing, a concept somewhat alien in our modern age. Most of us would assume that purple had been the color associated with royalty since the days of the Roman emperors, but nearly every color of clothing had its own meaning during the era, and this meaning was understood by the audience. The colors of the costumes therefore conveyed an enlargement amount of information as soon as the actor walked onto the stage. The types of materials and fabrics would have had a corresponding effect. Many of the plays had historical themes featuring the royalty and nobles of the land. As soon as an actor walked on the stage, the fabric and color of his clothing would indicate the role of the character he was playing. Elizabethan nobles and upper classes wore clothing made of silks, velvets, lace, and cottons, etc.